Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We'll get started in just a moment. We appreciate you joining and spending your time with us today. As I said, good morning, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Uh, I am Nate Futrell, Industry Partnerships Director with CareerRise. I forgot my title. uh, Today is Thursday, May 15th. Welcome to the Industry Partnerships Monthly Webinar. We'd love for you to take just a moment to introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, what organization or business you're with, and what part of Georgia are you in? And while you are taking a moment to introduce yourself in the chat, I see some familiar faces. Bonnie, good to have you with us today. Ruth Alvarez Moon, glad you could join us. Uh, Jamila Daniels, thank you for being here. Appreciate having you today. Um, Clifton Marvel Jr., thanks for being with us. Uh, so about CareerRise, in case you are new to the Industry Partnerships webinar series, new to CareerRise, a little bit about us. We're a nonprofit organization based here in the Atlanta region. We have been operating for about 13 years, and we are involved in everything workforce development. We position ourselves at the center of all of those players in the game of workforce development, like employers, funders, training providers, support services, job seekers, to help connect the dots, bring all of those organizations together toward common goals of helping skilled workers get good jobs. So our mission is to advance economic mobility and regional prosperity by strengthening partnerships that meet employer needs for skilled talent and connect Metro Atlanta residents to sustainable wage careers. And our vision is that Metro Atlanta will be a strong, thriving, and equitable community with skilled employees connected to good jobs, right there in the vision. A little bit about the industry partnerships team. Uh, I call us the business side of CareerRise. Our goal, what we do is make workforce development easier for employers and those who support them. So that could be a lot of our friends from WorkSource or from our nonprofit agencies or technical college system. But really, what we really want to serve is those employers out there who are creating and providing job opportunities for residents of our community. How we go about doing that is by educating about and helping employers navigate through the workforce development ecosystem. There are a lot of us out here doing a lot of different things. It can be challenging to know who to talk to about which things and who has the help that I need for this problem. So here at CareerRise, we're all about helping you navigate this system called workforce development. We help create alignment and drive toward common goals and help employers build capacity and provide support to them through low-risk programming. You'll hear about some of those programs that we have on offer a little bit later. And one of the ways we go about educating is with our webinar series, which is why you're here today, where we provide innovative and practical ideas, tools, and resources to empower our employers. And want to touch briefly on our 5 strategies here. Looking across all industries, all business sizes, all geographies, we found that businesses, employers typically have sort of 5 common needs. Those include, we need people, so that's hiring, candidate sourcing, and workforce planning. We need people with specific skills. That's our training and registered apprenticeships strategic priority. Uh, our employees have life challenges, or our workforce has life challenges that make obtaining or keeping employment difficult. That's our employment success support strategy. We have jobs, but we have high turnover, and we want to attract people to a good company to work for. That is our job quality, careers, and workplaces strategic priority. And lastly, career awareness and promotion is all about the challenge of our young people not being aware of or having visibility into career pathways in high demand industries. So our webinar series touches on all of these things and more, and we're glad you could join us today. So on the agenda today, we'll have a welcome from our WorkSource Director, Brett Lacey. And then we'll hear from Norma Marquez about leveraging data to drive practical talent development strategies. You'll get some updates from us here on the CareerRise team, and then we'll wrap up, get you out of here by 12 o'clock. And it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Brett Lacey. He is the Deputy Director of Select Fulton and the Workforce Director for WorkSource Fulton. Brett, take it away.
Well, thank you, Nate, and good morning, everybody. At least for those of us in the metro area, enjoying some sunshine today. We were sort of chatting about that when we were waiting on everybody to get in. Enjoy it today and tomorrow. We'll see. I think we're officially hitting summer as you look at the forecast and the temperatures coming in. But glad you all could join us this morning. I know that this can be a particularly busy time, both professionally and personally, as we sort of wind down an academic school year, get real busy with holidays and the kickoff of summer. So glad you all could join us this morning. Really excited about the conversation today and another webinar here with the CareerRise team. As we just continue to look at how we can be supporting the labor force and supporting our employers in connecting that talent and opportunity. So again, as Nate noted, let's continue to have conversation and any questions in the chat. We'll be monitoring those throughout the morning. So feel free to enter those in. And with that, I will turn it over to Norma for our remarks today. And again, thank you for joining us this morning.
Well, good morning, everyone. How are you doing? I know that it is Thursday or Friday Eve for many of us, right? Or for all of us, looking forward to a weekend. So my name is Norma Marquez, and I'm the co-founder of SpeakTU, which is a workforce analytics platform that helps companies identify gaps within their own workforce in order to create the right journey or learning pathways for employees to have a retention number or to upskill their workforce. So today our objective will be to, so we're doing a webinar on leveraging data to drive practical workforce development strategies. And the objectives today is to unlock how workforce data can shape smarter and then share practical tools to identify gaps, then measure the growth that you're seeing, and then equip you with simple strategies that are scalable in order to meet the workforce needs for your organization. And I understand we have both companies and partners here. So this webinar would help both of you kind of find an alignment and how do you can partner to really create those workforce strategies utilizing data, whether it's from a company or what we've seen in the market. So let's do a quick mood check. I know it is Thursday and it's the half of the month, and we still got a couple more days or 16 more days before the month is over. And with that comes graduations, a lot of celebrations out there. And we also have, you know, a lot of demands on the place. So I want to see a quick, you know, mood check here. So if you feel energized, give me a clap. If you're ready to learn today, give me a thumbs up. Great, I see a lot of thumbs up. If you're just here to listen, give me a big heart. Then you tired and helpful. I'm sure that many of you are starting to feel that. And then need a boost. But I'm seeing a lot of good positive vibes out there. So keep it up. So what we're gonna do next, thank you for your participation. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move on to the next slide. And so what we know is why workforce data is important. And we know that about 35% of the HR leaders are utilizing data to drive talent decisions. And that is important because it really helps us target some of the gaps that you might need in order to support the clients or the business that you currently work in. And so what I like to do is we're going to do a quick poll. I know data can be daunting because it's sometimes a lot of information that comes at us at once, and then it can be overwhelming. And plus, we need to find the time to really kind of focus and dive into what the data is telling us. So I want to know where you guys are. And when it comes to your organization on the data maturity curve, so let's do a quick poll. Are you currently not using data? Are you using basic data, maybe just surveys and some, you know, completions or some type of information that you're gathering from your employees? Are you tracking outcomes, performance changes through data? Or are you doing more of predictive or personalized learning data, type of gathering? So let's do a quick poll and see where you guys are in that journey. I know it's too early, right, to do polls, and so let's see where you are. This is great. So we know 84% of the organizations are using data, and that they stay, and we know that employees that stay longer at companies that invest in their development, right? That is according to LinkedIn Learning 2023 survey that was posted. And then we also know organizations with strong learning cultures see a 30 to 50% higher engagement retention. And that is according to a study that Deloitte conducted in 2022. And get this, for every $1 that is invested in workforce development yields $4.70 in return. And that is according to ATD in 2023. So what we're saying is data really yields a huge return investment, and that can support us. So what we see in the results, I see the majority of you are not using data. And so maybe in the comments, you can tell me the reason why you're not utilizing data. Is it because you don't have access to platforms and tools that will give you, accessibility, or you don't have really an understanding of how to start that data? Maybe we can start, chatting on that, and I will give you some of the tools, but I'd like to see where we are with that. So we're going to move on to the next slide. And so here's the poll questions, right? So you're not using data, and we can start with a quick surveys and feedback forms, right? It doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to be, an extremely, labored intensive tool, but it can be something very, very, very lean, very good to track some of the outcomes, and that could be surveys. And I'll give you an example in a minute. You can do manager, right? It's important for us to capture pre and post assessments, and then manager reviews to see where we are with maybe not only our employees, but also our leadership team, and what are some of the skills they need to effectively manage and coach our employees. Linked training to KPIs like turnover and promotions. And that is something very difficult sometimes to track, but it's something that we can easily access through our platforms. Explore skill intelligence tools like Growth and Degree. Those are tools that would help you. And once you identify some of the skills, it helps you map out, and then it helps you kind of look in a dashboard and create reports, and based on what you create for those individuals. And we'll go a little bit more in depth in terms of some of the tools. And so it's always making sure that we have the data. So let's look at one. Use workforce trends. And I know that it's hard to sometimes look at data. Great. I was just reading a comment here, and says they're not using data, but I'm a Spanish teacher. So what we want to do is, and we can look at market, right? The marketplace, and see where are some of the skills needed in the current landscape, and where are some of the jobs that are out there that might need individuals, and how we can kind of help individuals develop some of those skills, even in the teacher, space, or the teaching space. So what we're looking at a turnover data, and this kind of relates to the workforce and some other organizations that are working with companies to identify talent. So an example, I was working with a company that it was in the pay, transactional fintech industry, and they had a high turnover in the call center, and so they had to constantly recruit individuals for the roles in the center. And it was a critical role because it supported the clients with integrations and the systems, and looking up accounts, and looking at balances, and looking at, some of the troubleshooting, some of the machines where you swipe your card and process payments, right? So if the system goes down, you kind of had to troubleshoot. And I was working with them, and what they had was a retention of 35% every time they started a class. And they were starting classes about months, every 2 months, and they were recruiting individuals, and they only were able to retain 5%. So imagine the cost and the time that it was taking them to fill those positions and really taking the individuals through the training. And what I did with them is I wanted to look at the data and kind of the profiles of the individuals that we're bringing in, and what are the skills and what are the core competencies that we're bringing in. Were they mainly high school graduates, or maybe individuals that just, have maybe 1 or 2 years of experience in customer service. And what I did is I looked at really identifying the skills that were great fit for the type of role that they were recruiting. And so what I found, what the solution was, going to a corporation or organization that offers, skill development, and saying, here's the profile that we're looking to recruit here, the role, and here's some of the skills that we need in order for an individual to be great at this role. And one of them was, it has some type of knowledge and technology. It's good with customer service, critical thinking, problem solving, communication skills. Somebody that, is not afraid to troubleshoot or that ask for help. And so what we did is we found an organization that was able to identify individuals from what they were, already have as participants in their own training. And we gave them the skills that we needed. And then what we did is we started matching individuals to the job. We also put them into work at the organization, and we coach them along the way. We were kind of hand to hand working with them just to make sure that the onboarding was right, the training was right, the communication, and just kind of making sure that they were getting the support that they needed. At the end of 6 months of following that journey with the students, they were able to retain 90% of those students or those participants that came in through the program. And that was a collaboration that we did with an organization, really, looking at how do we improve the skills of the individuals that are coming in, because we know that when you come into a role, especially if you've never worked in a setting, it is hard, right? It is hard for an individual to kind of simulate a culture and to wrap up rather quickly, especially if they're all themselves are having some challenges with understanding, not only the culture, but also looking at the technology and how fast paced some of those jobs are. So making sure that the individual was trained to those skills, and then we transition them, but also kind of partner with them to continue the development while they were training. Our goal was that in 6 months, these individuals would have a position within the company. And so I'm happy to say that not only we were looking at how do we fill those positions, but then from that group, how do we then now start developing individuals to go into other roles where we might see a need, right? So that was quality assurance and more of the technical, like I type of support roles. And we started to create those journey maps to kind of accelerate their growth and to be able to place them into other roles within 18 months. And so that was kind of the plan, was to get them in the door at the customer service level and then move them into our other specific roles, and where we see skills that were needed and that they already had. So that's an example of how data can help you. And data can be, just looking at analysis of, the skills that you need for a specific, and how organizations can partner with kind of help close that gap. So that would be one. Employee feedback is another one. And what we do is you got performance data that can help you identify which skills are consistently underperforming, and then you can start creating this journey maps or the journey, to help an individual. And so we'll move on to the next one. And so I know that data can be overwhelming, right? Oh my God, I work with so many senior level executives that really their schedule is so busy, and if they don't understand the data and they don't know how to pull the data and what they're looking for, can be overwhelming. And so it could be one of those things where it's kind of frustrating. So what I oftentimes do is I go in there with data and look at it, maybe gaps that they have in their development. So let's say that, customer service, if you look at customer service in your area, let's just, general example, looking at customer service, and then we're seeing that they're not scoring high enough in the customer service satisfaction, and we're gonna start diving deep into why. Is that communication is a problem? Some is that we're not really giving them the response that they need, or that we're not solving the problem for the client. And we'll look at that summary of the data and start looking at, how do we support their development? All the areas that we look at, are they getting promoted? And if they're getting promoted, what are some of the skills that they had that allow them to get promoted? And if not, what can we do to kind of accelerate that? And sometimes that's where organizations become very critical, right? So we're looking at the data, we're analyzing the data, and then we're gonna do a segmentation of that data. And I know that this is maybe a lot, because what I've seen the leaders start to do is they look at the data and they start diving deeper and deeper and deeper, and then they become overwhelmed. So what I like to do is look at the data. Let's look at areas that perhaps we really need to focus on, and then start diving into a little bit deeper into that data. Like an example, I had a manager who had one team that was super, fast paced, but the turnover was high. And so when we look at the data, it was the manager who had been placed in that role 8 months, before, and got promoted from a, contributor to a team member, to a contributor, to an, sole contributor role. And it was hard for that individual. So that individual, though had the leadership skills, it was lacking some of the coaching and some of the really strategic thinking organizations to be able to help the team succeed or be successful. So we look at how do we help that manager getting some of the skills that are needed so that she can continue to thrive in an environment where she is now a team leader. So the data collection and analytics, it really helps to accelerate that. So we look at analysis and segmentation, and then personalized learning pathways, what I call. And some of the tools that you use, some of them have learning management systems, where you can create pathways for your employees to gain access to some of the skills. And I give you an example. So in one of my recent consulting, I had a group of individuals that were going through I would say professional development, journey for 12 months. And what we did is we looked at our organization that could support us by giving us maybe consultants and coaches. And what we did is we built cohorts of individuals that represented different regions. And with that, we survey the participants and say, okay, now that you've been selected for this program, and it's a 12-month, program where you're going to create a project that supports the company's strategic objectives. And let's say it is recruitment, right? So we want to develop those leadership skills, and we want to make sure that they understand also how to gather data to support the project so that it can benefit the organization. So we went to the individuals and asked them, what are some of the skills that you're looking to obtain during this program? And they list them out, and they gave us this. We got the responses, we got the information. Then we went to the managers and we said, what are some of the skills that you believe your employee needs in order to be successful and to create that mobility for them, right? Whether it's in the same area of expertise, or maybe just rotational and or going to another area. And they give us that. Then we look for a partner that could give us learning tools for each one of those development, which could be, communication, maybe being the leader, maybe creating strategic plans, or, how to leverage data, all those things. And we created roadmaps for the individuals. Along the way, we creating coaching opportunities for them. And it is important for us to monitor and measure and adjust. And one of the things that I was doing every 3 months, I will go back in there and say, how are we doing? Are we on track to complete the courses that we needed to satisfy the requirements of the program? And so everything was driven by data. How are we doing? Who's participating? Who's not participating? How many hours have you invested? And one of the things that we found is that a lot of the modules that we had were intensively, long. And so it was anything from 45 minutes to 90 minutes. And what we did is we started slicing that data to micro learnings, right? Maybe 10, 15 minutes where people can just say, okay, I'm going to get quickly done, a learning or a chapter in 10 minutes rather than having to allocate, 60 to 90 minutes of their time to do, the training. So by doing those surveys and by looking at data, it allows for us to pivot and to look for resources that really help us with skill development and, making sure that not only we align with what the individual needed to be successful, but also looking at how do we make sure that we have KPIs to demonstrate that what we're doing is really helping the organization. And we have about 120 participants, and out of those, 20% of them got promoted at the end of the year. And the reason why is because not only that we create those pathways, but we also make sure that we manage that, we communicated with the HR, we communicated with the leadership, and then that was all tracked on their workday, profile. And then we also give them badges, right? So badges that they could use to say, what I learned this, similar to what you see on LinkedIn or any of the other tools, but it was kind of to demonstrate competency in certain areas. So one of the things that, we found is that people really like when you kind of give them a shout out and help them obtain or tailor that training and learning. So I would say, even though it takes a little bit more time, but I would encourage you to start kind of monitoring and how that progress goes. And there is truly a lot of organizations out there that can help you, with finding the right tools to help employees, develop some skills. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do another quick poll. And so which metric do you wish to use more efficiently? So is it a skills gap assessment, a promotion mobility data, engagement surveys, training impact, performance data, or I don't know where to start. I'll give you, a few minutes to see where, or maybe a quick seconds to respond to that tool. It is important, right? It's a lot of, data, a lot of work that goes behind. So skill gaps assessment, promotion mobility data is what we're seeing more. And then engagement surveys, training, impact, performance data. We see about 45% and 45% in the skills, that last two. And then 10%, where do we start? And so we're seeing a lot of you using some of that data, and which is good. And I'm going to go here. So what we need to do now, we're going to leverage, there you go. So when we look at tracking, right, it's important, and it seems like you guys are already doing it. Some of the things that you can then pinpoint and look and dive deep into to make sure that you create that tracking and return investment, right? That $1 to $4.70. You don't need a lot of data to make a splash, right? So start small. Maybe you look at data such, completion rates. How many of our employees or participants are really completing the the training or the development that we put in place for them. Assessment scores. That's a huge indicator of whether they're understanding the information or not, or whether they engage or they just did it because, you know, they asked me to do it, but I'm really not into it. That really gives us a good understanding of where they are in the learning journey. So job performance impact. How does that impact their job? And then maybe looking at employee managers and really looking at that data to see if that was the right path for them or not. So begin with the metrics you can already assess. Build credibility before complexity. And one of the things I can tell you is that in one of the organizations, we had we were going through the skill development and workforce development. We wanted to create that upper mobility. And it is so important to create that credibility. And one of the things that we're doing the surveys, right? And then we started doing webinars to kind of just talk about some of the things that we wanted to do and some of the things that we wanted to understand from a management perspective, some of the gaps that the managers had to effectively do their work. And what we noticed is that a lot of the individuals that signed up and came to participate were not really being transparent and that were not sharing. And because of, you know, the fact that they felt that perhaps this was going to get back to their manager and they were going to get in trouble. And so there was not just the credibility, but the trust issue. And so what I did is I started doing webcasts where I would ask participants to anonymously report some of the concerns or just kind of share what would they like to see a little bit more development for the managers. And that worked well. And so we were able to then go back and align some of the trainings for management, not necessarily the employees, but the management team to be able to kind of help with the development of their own employees. So there is a good tool that I like to introduce to you. And this is a great resource for those who are already doing some of the things, but then kind of need a little bit more of a support in developing some of the strategies. Cognota resource has 5 training needs analysis templates, and they're an Excel, Word document, PDFs, and this will help you gather data, analyze it, and prioritizing and learning designed efforts. And so a lot quickly, right? And if you were to do it, and this all depends also on how big your organization is, right? So this probably would be good for maybe anything less than 500 employees. If you want to do it manually, you truly want to understand where that learning curve is. But if you want to do it in the massive scale, you probably want to do it in another platform. But this is a very good kind of assessment tool for managers, a good exercise for managers to go through to see where their employees are. And so what we're going to do is we're going to quickly pull up. And so you can see the analysis process gives you the steps that you will follow to be effective in this type of, you know, exercise. So list the skills and competencies down to the left hand of the spreadsheet. And I'm giving you kind of just the rundown of the spreadsheet, and then we'll share it with you. But then the step 2 is the list of people across the top of the spreadsheet that you want to complete the training needs analysis for, and then you decide a scale. And so in the scales 1 to 10, with 10 being the most proficient and then 0 being the least. And then the step 4 is on the moment of the spreadsheet, you will not show which is the most important, right? But it will give you an idea of what kind of tools, or if you see, Sherry, if you can pull up the spreadsheet maybe on the screen so that I can show them, that would be great. And I think she shared one of the documents, but the spreadsheet is pretty easy to do, right? So it has the names, it has the competencies like management skills, organization skills, learning. So you can assess all those skills, and you don't necessarily have to go through all of them. You can just pick and choose the ones that are more relevant to the team members that are looking to do some skill development. But this is a tool that I find very useful because it really gives you a quick understanding of all the other areas in which you can, you know, look to develop an individual. So if you go to the top of the spreadsheet, you'll see that it just lists things like, again, managing meetings, projects, uh, things like budgets, things that are relevant to your team. And then on the top of the spreadsheet on row 1, and then starting in column B, you can put the name of the individual. This will give you a score, and you can just do it by department, or you can do it by, the whole organization. And we will definitely include this spreadsheet on the recap of the meeting, but it gives you an ability to really look at individuals and where they are across the functional area. And then at the bottom, it gives you an overall score or where they are in each one of those categories. And again, this is just a framework. You can go and change it and make adjustments based on what you see their needs are for the individuals in various departments or various, services. So this is a good starting point. You can create the surveys or employee engagements based off of this too. If you want to get a little bit more data to utilize and to support some of the learning and development areas that you want to take your employees through. Want to foster a continuous learning culture. And so data notches ongoing learning, recognizes progress with dashboards and badges. I think it's important to, again, how do we continue to engage our employees? And that is through recognizing their progress with dashboards. And, the badges are something that I like to use because, whether it's an industry where you have emails, and then you can put on your email signature, or you can just share with the leadership and say, here are the individuals that have completed X amount of training, and this is what we're seeing. Maybe we're seeing a much larger retentions, or we're seeing a much larger placement on our individuals, or we're seeing companies coming back to us because they like the training that we provide that is more customized to their needs. So really helping us, tell the story from a different angle. And then encourage ownership via transparent data. And so, those are tools that I will continue to engage and to invite you to use. You don't like the data. I know that other companies use huge amounts of data, but I would say maybe just focus on where are some of the areas of opportunity. Maybe we're having a high turnover. Maybe we're not getting the skills that we need coming in, or where maybe once the employees come in to a role, they need to, accelerate in other areas with other type of skills, and what are some of the learnings that we need to create for them. With that in mind, I would like to open it up for questions.
All right, and if you have any questions for Norma, you can drop your question in the chat, or you can use the raise hand function here in your Zoom chat box, and we can allow you to come off of mute and ask your question out loud. And while we're seeing if our audience has any questions, I have one for you, Norma.
Sure.
Well, actually, we have one from Megan. She says, she asks, do you have any books you would recommend to read about workforce development if you just wanted to learn more about the topic?
You know what? I'll send you the list of the books, Megan, if that's okay.
She says, great, thanks. Norma, a question that I have is, or do you have any recommendations or suggestions about how to determine what all the skills are that are required for a position? What if, say, I'm an HR manager and we know that we have, position X that we're really focused on. How would we go about identifying what skills and competencies make up that role?
Is that are you looking to, so you're the HR manager, but maybe you're sourcing for an IT position?
Sure.
Okay, so I would say, I always look for in the skills is that does it have ability to manage, problem solving? critical thinking, right? Does it have a good communication skills? Is it quick to learn? Is it somebody that it always curious, right, to learn? Or does it have like ask questions? Is it somebody that is coachable? And looking at whether and whether they can be a team player and help others, right? So that coaching, but also the leadership role and being someone that can mentor others. So I would say for technical skills, I'm always looking for that. I used to say I hire for ABC, aptitude, behavior, and communication, right? Whether they have the very good communications and that curiosity, especially in IT, and then what type of technical skills do they know, whether it's, what type of systems and networks, or can they troubleshoot? Is it somebody that is quick on their feet? Somebody that is going to ask for help because sometimes they don't know that all, right?
Exactly. So let's say I have a position that I want to upskill some of my workers into, and I wanted to identify the position Y is what we want. We want to move some customer service representatives into position Y. How would I go about identifying the skills that that position requires?
So that's a great question. And we know that customer service is not just, smile and looking, nice, but it's also about what types of technologies are you looking, do you have, right? It's somebody that can utilize technology. And then what type of customer service roles are there? Are they front facing or they on the phone? Because those take two different types of individuals, right? You can have somebody that is the complete introvert and in a phone and that will do well because they're not looking at the individual. But an extrovert will probably be a lot harder because they need that the communication, the nonverbal, right? The face. But I would say, what type of technologies do you have? What type of, you know, communication you need in order to perform well? And then typing skills sometimes, right? Because if you're gonna take the communication, you gotta document and you gotta be able to look at the technology, what they're saying, and start typing and making sure that you record that conversation. So it's the ability to integrate different things in one and multitask, I would say.
Great, thank you. Adina asked, what tips do you have for building rapport and trust among employees?
I see that and assure them that the tools are here to improve it. So, the one tool, I remember the batches that we had, and then having that kind of communication where you can do a spotlight or newsletter and say, Nate just achieved X, Y, and Z, and then maybe talking about promotions of individuals that really are thriving and they're doing well. Or can we put them in a position where I know a lot of the companies have employee resource groups or business resource groups. Can we put them in the leadership position and continue to develop them and just give them that visibility, right? And saying, this is for you owned. You're so good at X, Y, and Z, and we would like you to take this volunteer opportunity and kind of be now part of who changes the culture. It's giving them those opportunities to really kind of be visible, but is through reassuring that you know what, you got a couple of skills that you need to develop. Show me that you can, and then let's see for opportunities for you to advance within the company. Or how about pairing them up with a coach or a mentor within our organizations that reassure them why it's important for them to have those skills.
Thank you, Norma. One last question from our audience. Do you encourage companies or businesses to complete job analysis for positions across their company?
I do. I do. And one of the things that happens often is that we're so busy, right? And we have a job description, and that's the same job description we have used for the past 10 years, or 10 years, and the skills have changed, or the technology has shifted, or the job that was probably 10 years ago is now a role of two individuals. So really looking at those core competencies in the job analysis and looking at the market and see where you might find that maybe the job title even change, right? It requires a different set of skills. I had one individual that interviewed for a job and they were looking for an HR recruiter, and what they were what the manager, the feedback that was is, oh, she doesn't have the talent acquisition. Well, that's two different things, right? So let's make sure that you do the job analysis and you look for the skills that you need, and then have those job postings accurately. And the managers can tell you, right? Are you asking the managers, is it the right job description? I know we're busy, right? But is it still in alignment with what you need? And if not, let's change it up a little bit or update it.
Perfect. Actually, we have one more question. She says, and this comes from Megan. She says, if I'm remembering correctly, I think you said only 35% of HR managers make decisions based off of data. So how do they make decisions generally if it's not based on data?
You know what? I think they just make it based on what the leaders are telling them in terms of, what skills do I need? How do I need to change? And sometimes HR leaders are going off of what the business needs, not necessarily what the data is telling them. So if you're looking at, well, you hired 35 people for the call center job, but 20 of them dropped is because you didn't do the right thing in the recruiting process. And if you go back to the recruiting process, you probably want to look at the data and say, where do we recruit these individuals from? What are some of the skills that they brought in? What are some of the, education they have? And if they look at the data really, they probably say, you know what, we shouldn't be recruiting from this area. We should, or this area gives us a better talent pool. Maybe that's the area that we need to focus on. So creating those partnerships and those opportunities to bring the best talent to fit the skills that you need. So oftentimes they're not really looking at the data in terms of where do they come from and what type of skills do they bring in. Or they're not communicating with the managers and saying, hey, how is this individual performing?
Yeah, that communication is important, but like you said, having data to back up your insights and decisions, incredibly valuable. Well, Norma, thank you so much. Appreciate you sharing your expertise with us today. And we could do a reaction round of applause for our speaker, Norma, today.
Well, thank you for having me, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the month.
And make sure to stay involved with us. Attend these webinars. We'll have a new webinar series coming up soon for the second half of the year. Also helps to subscribe to our digest so you can keep up to date on all of the programs, initiatives we have going on, and ways to stay connected with us. You can also follow us on LinkedIn. Just look for CareerRise on LinkedIn and hit follow to stay in touch with everything CareerRise, everything we're doing in the workforce development space. And I assume you're registered for our webinars if you're already here, but in case you aren't, the QR code there and the link in the chat will make sure you stay connected with us. On June 18th, we'll be having a webinar about supporting caregivers at work. On July 17th, we'll be talking about financial well-being for your employees, knowing this is a really challenging time with prices going up, inflation being a challenge. August 27th, we'll have helping employees navigate life challenges. And then in September, will be job quality, the economics of good jobs. So we hope you'll join us for our next round of upcoming webinars. Thank you from the CareerRise team. We appreciate you spending your morning with us, and stay connected with us by email, LinkedIn, or give us a call. We appreciate you and have a great rest of your day and rest of your week.